Okay, folks, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive with us?
Always ready to dive in.
Well, today we're looking at, a very real problem, for anyone building apps that use FHIR servers.
Yeah.
Trying to answer a pretty simple question.
Yeah.
How can we tell that a FHIR server is down
Right.
before
the
user
before the user runs into a problem.
runs into a problem? Exactly.
Exactly.
Imagine trying to check your upcoming appointments,
Right.
through an app, and bam, you get an error message.
Yeah.
The server's down.
Totally.
Super frustrating, right?
Yeah. And in healthcare, a down server, it's not just a bad user experience. We're talking about potential delays in diagnoses or treatments.
Right, serious stuff.
Yeah, it is serious stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a big question. How do we reliably check a FHIR server's status
Right.
before it impacts users?
Yeah.
And how do we do that responsibly, without being careless with data or resources?
Right. Well, the source material, jumps into a few ideas right off the bat.
Right.
One is checking the capability statement, or making a basic resource call like checking a patient record. On the surface, these seem, pretty logical.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But there's some gotchas, some little traps there.
Okay.
So the capability statement, that's basically the document that outlines what a FHIR server can do.
Okay.
It might be accessible
Okay.
even when the server's having problems.
So it's like seeing a menu outside a restaurant,
Exactly.
but the kitchen is closed.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
go into order and there's nobody there.
Yeah. Okay. And what about those basic resource calls?
Yeah.
Just ping the server, see what happens.
Seems simple enough.
Right.
But often those calls need really specific parameters to work, right?
Oh.
So you might get a negative response that isn't really reflecting the true server status.
Like a false alarm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, right.
Waste of time.
And on top of that, we can't just be running test queries on, real patient data.
Can't do that.
Privacy nightmare.
Huge privacy concern.
Yeah.
And it just fills up audit logs unnecessarily.
Right. So are we kind of stuck here?
Well, the source suggests an interesting idea,
Okay.
and that is setting up a custom endpoint or operation.
Okay.
Maybe calling it something like iServer Active.
Okay.
You can think of it kind of like a direct line to the server's control room,
Oh.
bypassing all the data access and log generation.
So instead of going through the whole house looking for signs of life,
Exactly.
we just knock on the front door
Right.
and say, "Hey, anyone home?"
Exactly.
Oh.
And if the server is up and running, it gives us a clear yes.
Right.
And if not, well, at least we know
Right.
before
right.
we
Send the user on a wild goose chase.
exactly before we send the user off on a useless task.
Now, this custom endpoint idea is pretty neat.
But it does feel like we're adding another layer of complexity here.
That's true.
Is this really the most elegant solution?
Right.
I mean, are there other paths we could
But
consider?
it's a $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, this deep dive really highlights that there isn't this perfect solution just
Yeah.
sitting there waiting for us.
Yeah.
It really pushes developers and system architects to think about these trade-offs.
Yeah.
The user experience needs to be smooth,
Right.
but we also need to keep data secure,
Yeah.
and we have to be responsible with how we're using resources.
Yeah. So what's the big takeaway here for our listeners?
Well, building healthcare apps with FHIR servers,
Yeah.
it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
When it comes to checking the server status,
Yeah.
the ideal solution has got to be reliable,
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be secure,
Yeah.
and it has to be as straightforward as possible.
As straightforward as possible.
Yeah. And here's something I think is worth thinking about. Could future advances in FHIR server technology actually give us more standardized ways to approach this problem?
Right.
Imagine a world where server status checks are just built in.
Yeah.
We wouldn't need these custom solutions anymore.
Right.
What would that mean for developers?
Yeah.
And more importantly, what would it mean for the patients who rely on these technologies?
Yeah.
It's definitely a question worth exploring as healthcare and tech, continue to kind of merge and evolve.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Lots to think about.
lots to think about.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive,
Yeah, thanks for having me.
and we'll see you next time.
See you later, bye!
Bye.